續同咧 Heimat 嘅總廚同埋創辦人Chef Peter Fines 傾偈嘅。咁咧啱啱Peter 啦，佢就分享咗，即係之前係喺一啲6星級酒店嗰度，即係我哋叫打工啦，即係做行政主廚啦。咁點解突然之間自己會出嚟開一間餐廳咧？咁首先就係佢覺得自己趁住仲有活力。係咪啊？趁住係啦，仲有呢個 passion 喺度咧，佢就好想話俾大家知，其實德國菜唔係我哋香港人一般認識嘅咁窄嘅，
唔係淨係豬手啊，
係啦，唔係淨係豬手，唔係淨係啤酒節嗰啲嘅，其實仲有好多嘅，亦都簡單提過咧，就係 chef 咧，其實係一個喺好細嘅村莊嗰度長大，咁令到佢咧又想帶好多一啲可能家鄉菜係咪咧，就係俾我哋香港等我哋有口福。係啦，咁係咪可以問多啲咧？就係關於佢細個嘅一啲嘅經歷點樣 inspire 到佢要行廚師嘅路咧？
Yeah, I think one question that I want to ask a little bit more is actually the name of your restaurant because I think it's easy to say Heimat translates to home, but actually from a little bit of research I did, it's not a concept that translates perfectly into English. So tell us a little bit more about what that term encompasses.
Yeah. Well, so Heimat, as you clearly mentioned, is home. So for a lot of people, it's places where you feel comfortable, where you come from, you're grown up, and people around you, right? This is Heimat in a nutshell. It can also be out of surrendering, can be a little bit about the culture, history, from Germany, and I think it's a word which it's not easy to translate in one single translation in English, right? But it's have a much more deeper understanding, I think there's a lot of childhood memories coming up, when you read something about German culture with musicians from the past and so on. I think there's a lot of things reflecting in the word, and it's sometimes you need to experience, but for me it's always Heimat is if I invite friends to my home. I think it's in a nutshell the comfortable place. You know each other. You give whatever you feel is good. You would not give anything which is not good enough, right?
So tell us. I mean, I know we don't have a picture to show everyone, but tell us about the restaurant because if this concept of homeland, being comfortable, I'm assuming it's not just the food that reminds you of home. I assume the environment of the restaurant and the kind of service or experience you want to deliver. Now, I don't want to put words in your mouth, Chef, but I don't know much about German hospitality. What I do know Germans are famous for are engineering, precision, being on time.
Yes.
So tell us about German hospitality.
Well, I think it's, if you travel to Germany, I mean, now it's also more English speaking. I think 20 years ago was still maybe some people don't speak English, but in general, we're happy to have people around us. Okay. So we're open with open arms. The design reflecting this a little bit. There's things which you feel in somebody's home. A lot of cookbooks when you're coming in. There's some utensils which some from my area, from the Frankfurt area, so blue and white pots, which we use as a side dishes and so on. So it's kind of authentic to a certain extent. And some clay pot dishes, we bake an apple inside, and a lot of wood, which I think it's very, very associated with Germany in generally. There is in the beginning, there's a kind of a little bit like a cobblestone replica, not exactly the real cobblestone, but just something homey. We have an open pastry kitchen, which is only use home appliance, so nothing expensive and so on. Just like where people can sit, make some cooking class, home baking stuff and so on. And then the restaurant have this typical bench seating. So like in German houses, you have the kitchen, and in the kitchen is always a table with a bench. Right? Where you're sitting and eat. So we don't have a separate room for eating. It's always, everything is happening in the kitchen. Right? And you smell it, you read the newspaper there, you have your coffee there, people come for chit-chatting and so on. So this is there, and I like blue color. So blue is dominantly in my area as well.
Chef 唔單止分享咗咧，即係美食，佢仲講咗好多關於咧，即係德國人嘅文化、室內設計啊，點樣好中意招呼朋友啊，咁都好符合翻咧佢哋嘅餐廳咧，就係想做到大家好賓至如歸，好似去咗人哋屋企度食飯嘅感覺。而阿 Chef 最中意就係藍色啦，咁所以 Heimat 都係用藍色為主調啦，咁樣。
同埋好多啲佈置其實都跟啲食物有關啊，譬如 擺放嗰啲煲寶碟碟啊、啲餐具啊，都係一啲傳統德國菜會用到嘅嘢嘛。Now, if we were to come to your restaurant, what is a signature dish that you would say
must
is a
order item?
Yes.
Well, if you ask the chef, say, what should I eat? I tell you, everything is good, right? No. I think if you come to Heimat, you should try something which you didn't have before. I think one of the, based on customer feedback, it's not what I'm saying, right? I think there is a cabbage roll which reflecting a typical German comfort dish, in a more elevated versions. So basically, it's a green cabbage. We take the outer leaf, blanch it, and then the heart, we dice it, blanch it as well, and then we're using a local black pork. So try to use local ingredients as much as possible. And just white onions and the cabbage inside. Then we roll it, char it, and then we make a rich pork stock, and then we cook it in the oven. And this is, I would not say it's like a cheesy tao, but because also with the cabbage and so on, but it's super tasty and it's rich flavor and it's very aromatic. I think this is the dish you should try for sure. Definitely a potato dish and the hand-shaved noodle called Spetzle. So Spetzle is flour, eggs, salt, pepper, nutmeg, thick dough like a pancake dough, and then you shave them with a wooden board, so the original way, and a knife, kind of like a taco doshanmin. So the movement is similar.
In German style.
Yeah, and this we pan fried is nice, chewy and fluffy, and it's something which in Germany is very, very popular, but here in Hong Kong, almost not many people know it.
Never even heard of it.
Yeah, and it's so good. 好好食。
係咯，好好食。
刀削麵真係第一次聽喎。
係因為咧，即係難得去到 chef 嘅餐廳嘅時候，你唔會即係除咗嗌豬手之外啦，你今日嗌一啲咧，你係未食過，而家 chef 就咧重點推介嘅嘢，咁啊 chef 就話你嚟到我梗係建議你成份 menu 嗌晒佢啦，因為樣樣都咁好食啊嘛。咁佢啱啱咧就係講咗一個刀上面好得意啦，仲有啱啱一個係咪一個白菜嘅卷，跟住焗一焗佢。係
啦，咁同埋阿 chef 強調就係話佢想用一啲本地嘅食材嘅，係啦，咁所以佢話黑毛豬係本地you said
black pig. It's a local black pig.
Local pig.
Have a little bit more flavor.
OK.
係啦，咁樣所以
即係重味啲嘅本地嘅豬肉，因為佢想融合翻一啲本地嘅食材入啲食物裏邊啦。係啊，
除咗用本地嘅食材咧，我知道 chef 咧仲會同一啲本地嘅餐廳咧去合作，即係做到一啲咧即係中西融合嗰個效果嘅。即係其中一個咧就係佢同夏文記。係嘛？夏文記 Heimat 係啦嘅一個合作，可以講多啲關於點解佢會揀一啲同一啲 local 嘅餐廳，一啲好中式嘅嘢，好似感覺上同德國菜拉唔到拉楞，但係佢又做到嘅喎，即係點樣做到？點樣諗到呢一個 concept 出嚟嘅咧？
咁我哋翻嚟咧再講啦。
繼續同德國名廚 Chef Peter Fine 傾偈嘅，咁啱啱 Chef 咧就係提到佢都好中意喺佢嘅菜式入面咧用本地嘅食材啦，咁亦都提到咧就係好中意同本地嘅餐廳合作。不過我要更正翻少少先，因為我啱啱咧就係見到個英文拼音就係夏明記，其實咧中文係應該係夏銘記先啱，係啦。咁啊好特別喎！我睇過佢哋嗰個 crossover 嘅菜單喎，佢咧係用翻德國嘅薯仔，跟住加翻咧我哋本地最出名嘅就係咩魚蛋粉啊嘛，咁用本地嘅墨魚丸啦，跟住又加翻佢哋德國嘅溫薯仔嘅慕斯，即係將啲薯仔變做 mousse 咁樣啦，又加翻我哋本地嘅炸魚皮，再加啲魚子醬，就係其中一個咧佢哋中西融合嘅一個好特別嘅菜式。點解佢會諗到一啲咁得意嘅合作出嚟嘅咧？好 Desmond，
真係要問下啦。頭先咧，阿 chef 講咗一句好得意嘅嘢，就係 there's fusion and then there's confusion.
That's correct.
And I think you're right in the sense that sometimes you look at these quote unquote crossovers and they don't really work. So what was the inspiration behind this, and how did you come up with the idea of partnering or crossing over with a very local Chinese dish?
Yeah, I think it's this collaboration because I like to eat very local, and I can cook me nice dishes, but sometimes you want just something simple, a bowl of noodle, a bowl of fish bowl, or ramen, whatsoever, to make you happy, and then when you're happy, you forget everything, you don't have to go to the doctor whatsoever, right? But I think it's because more when I eat something, I say, okay, what could we do differently? And then when I met Roger, then we say, okay, how can we, would you be interested first of all? Because, sometimes a traditional shop, they don't want to do something fancy. And I say, and I explain them my idea, I say, you want to use your products, your dishes originally, but we're adding a twist to it. A little slightly elevated, but it's recognizable. You can taste, and this one, we just make it slightly different and adding some typical German elements to it with a German potato, a German cabbage, and so on, and a Riesling mustard sauce. And I think it's, when he tasted it, he was impressed. He was like, oh my God, he never thought about this dish could work. So it's kind of take something very classic, bring it slightly up without, make it too messy. So still you can feel the original taste. And it's fun. End of the day, it's also not overly complicated. Yes, we serve it. It's a little bit different, not all together, but that's about it. And then we pair it with some German wines. So kind of giving there where you can have the elevations.
係，我 chef 係好好玩嘅喎，佢真係覺得個過程係好 fun 啊，充滿住樂趣啦。咁所以就諗到啲咁多創新嘅 idea 同埋菜式出嚟咧，就係撈埋我哋香港本地嘅，即係啱啱佢有講嘅牛腩麵，係竟然係啦，佢係識得牛腩麵，佢中意食，係啦。
係咁啊，同埋即係 chef 講過，其實好多時you said when you guys get off work. Yeah. You want to go grab some food, and this is part of the inspiration.
Yeah, absolutely.
就係因為如果大家知道做嘢咁辛苦，同埋做飲食行業咧，其實好多時都好夜至放工嘅。
同埋人哋放假，佢自己要翻工咧。係啊，大時大節一定要開工㗎嘛。
Exactly. 咁好多時佢哋放咗工之後咧，就會聚下，就去本地一啲餐廳去食下嘢，咁所以其實呢樣嘢都啟發到佢嘅。
但點樣去取得個平衡咧？即係創新之餘，咁佢有一啲嘅傳統口味啊，或者佢真係想將一啲傳統嘅德國美食帶俾我哋香港人㗎嘛？佢點樣去做一個平衡嘅咧？又或者佢點樣去根據住我哋香港人嘅口味去到做調整嘅咧
？How do you strike that balance, Peter? Sometimes when you want to promote a food, you just want to go all in. This is how we do it in Germany. I want you to taste this. But a lot of foods in different parts of the world, they have to cater a little bit to the local taste, local culture. Dessert's a perfect example. A lot of Asians don't like to eat things that are super sweet. You notice, and I appreciate that because I think back to when I was a kid in Canada. If I were to eat those foods now as an adult, I would be,
You'd be like me.
Overwhelmed. But it's the taste buds. It's just too overwhelming. And I appreciate that a lot of desserts now I find in Asia, they use less sugar and it adjusts better to the local palate. So how do you strike that balance between preservation, innovation, and adapting to local tastes?
I think, of course, time moves on. If you cook exactly like 50 years ago, it would not work anymore. Right? You need to adapt. So we do also desserts, less sugar, and when you tell this to the customer, they right away they feel happier. We also in 80% of our soups we don't use butter and cream.
Wow, 80%.
Yeah, only the only one is a white asparagus soup because a little bit cream it's distribute the flavor much better. It's fat is flavor distributor. And I think in the white asparagus, you need a little bit. But in all our soups, we don't use butter and cream. So this is, people feel happy. We're using more of the items to get natural thickness. And I think, yes, you need to adapt. So, of course, some items we do extremely authentic, like the noodles I mentioned before, or the potatoes, because I want to feel this one. But on the seasoning, especially on the soup, I'm cautious on salt, because Hong Kong people don't like too salty. In Germany, most people go to Germany, they feel always the food is a little bit salty, like rich, especially the sauces. I think it's more on the sauces, not necessarily the meat. So yes, been here a long time in Asia, I understand less salt, less cream, less butter, but not compromising on flavor. And this is the balancing act, which sometimes, of course, you need to taste. On desserts, you have to follow more recipes. The other cooking is more coming from your heart and from your stomach, right? But then desserts, you have to follow recipes. Sometimes you need to adjust a little bit accordingly.
即係 chef 嘅成功之道都係咧，即係我嗰個菜式個精髓我保留住，但係我會因應住特別我哋香港人咧，就都比較有追求健康啦，最興就係講少糖啦、少油啦、少啲鹹啊，即係少啲鹽啦，跟住連佢話佢哋啲湯啊，大部分都係唔會落牛油同埋 cream 係啦，忌廉嘅，咁呢啲就係調整翻去適合翻本地人嘅一啲嘅口味咯。
有冇去過德國啊？嘉嘉
有去過啊。Posh Museum
我就未去過德國，但係原來chef 話俾你聽咧，德國人嘅口味咧其實咧係偏向好鹹嘅。咁其實就唔係話啲肉鹹，反而係啲醬啊同埋啲汁啊。
係啊。其實最肥就係啲汁㗎嘛，通常。係啊，所以話你唔食肉咧，但係你用汁撈飯咧，其實都係會肥嘅。係，
所以如果佢話我哋過去咧，反而會覺得德國菜嗰啲嘢咧就比較鹹，所以佢喺呢方面咧，除咗減糖咧，亦都會減埋啲。
咁有冇話咧係佢哋啲靈感啊，係嚟自邊一度嘅咧？即係有冇啲靈感係嚟自佢細個啊？係嚟自佢譬如會唔會中意去旅行啊？定還是係中意同一啲 local people 去傾偈，去到攞一啲新嘅 idea 咧
？So your career has spanned decades, Peter. Where if we were to ask you about your restaurant, where does this inspiration come from? Does it come from childhood? Does it come from your overall experience working in different parts of the world? Does it come from conversations with friends or clients? Where does it stem from?
I think for Heimat in particular, I think 60% is really thrown up from your upbringing, from your childhood, right? Sometimes I make dishes which I had as a child, and now you bring it back, but of course you make it a little bit more lighter and so on. Of course, also seasonal is a main factor for me when I decide the menu. And of course, here we are in Hong Kong, right? In Hong Kong, there's certain dishes it's more popular, so you try to balance the line, And as in Western restaurants, the customer always wants something new, In Chinese restaurants, they're happy with the same thing for the whole year. You cannot take away the hagao, right? Otherwise this would be something. So we try to find the balance, right? But a lot of inspiration from bring back old dishes, something which we feel, this could work for the local taste, right? Sometimes you try, or you have some friends, let them try what you think, and then you're building on the most things. But it's a lot of things, of course, with experience. When you work for over 40 years in the kitchen, you have a good understand what work and what not work.
即係好多時諗菜式嘅時候咧，好大時候都係受到佢細個啲嘅影響，係嘛？咁但係譬如好似中菜咁樣，我哋唔可以整走蝦餃、燒賣、叉燒包㗎嘛。爭在你會唔會整黑松露燒賣啊、金箔蝦餃啊，咁樣去嚟到創新啊嘛。好啊，越講越肚餓。跟住之後啦，不如我哋又問下 chef 啦，嚟緊有啲乜嘢嘅計劃啊？我哋繼續咧就係請嚟喺香港蘭桂坊嘅一間德國餐廳叫做 Heimat 嘅名廚啊，就係 Chef Peter Fine 同我哋傾偈嘅。Peter 咧早前啦就同我哋介紹咗好多關於德國嘅美食啊，佢點樣去同一啲本地嘅餐廳合作，設計一啲咧中西合璧，應該話咧係香港再加德國式嘅一啲名菜出嚟咁啊，非常之特別啦。咁嚟緊啦，不如都想睇下佢有啲咩嘅新計劃啊，有啲咩嘅特別嘅合作啊，等等啊。
Peter, you were telling us about some, very creative crossovers, with a very local fishball brand.
Yeah.
What's coming up next on the agenda? What are your next collaborations?
So after this one, we do something a little bit more, going back to my Singapore time, where I met Chef Edward Woon. And so we're doing with him kind of Singapore, Southeast Asian twist with German cuisine. Something totally different.
哇！即係今次係同東南亞玩 crossover， 同一個新加坡嘅名廚 Woon 去到合作。嗱，新加坡嘅美食我諗起咩咧？胡椒蟹，
又係有啲咖喱啦、辣沙啊，
仲有海南雞。係啦，嚟緊有啲合作就係話3月初應該就會發生嘅。
But it's funny because you were saying before how in Germany it's very heavy flavors and salt, and actually Southeast Asian dishes also very flavor rich.
Yes.
Was that part of the reason for the
I think
climb?
it's more. This is more about friendships. When you're working along the time, you meet people which be a little bit more. You have a more common connections, and and I always appreciate his food and so on. And as a person also, right? So yeah, I think it's something a little bit totally different. And because since I'm worked in Singapore and I like spicy food and generally, how can we make a different spin on? Right? I think this is more the challenging part, right? It's not like you can, okay, let's do a promotion and so on. It's not exactly like this one. It is a little bit more involved, I'll be honest. Right?
咁原來Chef Peter 話咧，佢哋飲食界咧係好講友誼呢樣嘢嘅。咁好多時呢啲 collab 唔係話想搞啲嘢啊，做啲 noise 出嚟咧，
即係唔係為做而做嘅，
係啦，
佢哋真係 enjoy 緊個交流嘅。
係咁，同埋佢話識咗咁耐咧，就因為呢份友誼咧，所以就去決定去做一個合作咁樣咯。
好啊，令人期待啊！同埋真係 chef 係擺好多心思咧，去到 impress 我哋呢啲嘅食客㗎。我知道佢連呢個 petit four 都諗得好特別㗎喎。
係啊，so you talk so much about bringing German hospitality and homeland and that sense of being in someone's home. We understand that at the end of the meal at your restaurant, everybody experiences something that is a very special experience. Tell us about that.
Well, I know what you're referring is we're having a gummy bear trolley.
Gummy bear.
Gummy bear 即是係嗰啲
熊仔軟糖，
熊仔軟糖，即係彈口嗰隻嘅，
煙煙韌韌嗰隻果汁糖咁樣係咪？
It's a little bit chewy, and this is something typical childhood. If you as a kid you did something well in the school, you could buy a gummy bear in a small supermarket, or you have the small packet. If you go to Germany, some hotels, in the evening when you good night, they give you a 10-gram small packet of a gummy bear. Right? So this have German history, was created in 1920s, long time ago, and we serve 8 to 10 different flavors in the evening, and from the classical one, which was a bear shape. That's why we also have a teddy bear sitting there, because it was his first toy animal, and the shape he created was actually the first one was a bear. To a classical Coca-Cola, but we in Hong Kong we have ginger. Ginger gummy bear, which have a lovely flavor. A little bit like a tongyuan. So a little bit spice and the finishing. And if you can handle spices, we have also chili. We always have seasonal flavors. So now Valentine's coming up, we will have a lot of heart shapes and roses with different flavors. So it's fun. So the people, I didn't have a gummy bear for the last 30 years. So everybody feel younger.
Okay. Now, it's good that you mentioned younger, because my next question for you is, you've been in this industry for so long, you've traveled around the world, worked in different places. And I think a lot of people, whatever industry they're in, when they look back and they see what they have done, they also think about, what can I bring to the next generation? So my question for you is, the food and drink scene has changed so much all around the world. What advice would you have to give to the next generation of chefs or people who want to enter F&B?
Yeah, I always tell the young people when they're coming to a restaurant and they say, I love cooking, I like cooking whatsoever. And then usually when I talk to them and I say, when did you cook for your family? And if they say yes, and I see some fire in the eyes, then I know he have a chance to make it. Because in our industry, you need to have a lot of patience. And patient, because the hours are weird hours. That's why now the new generations, they want to have their off times. They don't want to work on public holidays or Saturdays, 10 o'clock, still staying in the kitchen. There's everything changed. So the loyalty factor compared to my generations, we work. What time we finish? When we are done. We never looked at the watch. Now, after 10 o'clock, already fun. So I think the passion part is very important. I think you need to know exactly what you get in. But if you're ambitious, for me, a chef or an F&B is a rewarding industry. If you like to serve, you need to like to serve. You have happy customers, sometimes customers not so happy. You still have to be happy, right? I think this is very important. If somebody really, I think it's always good to try new things. If you're stuck in one place, how much you can learn. If you're open-minded, you need to be flexible and say, I want to go like me, I've been to Asia, I want to understand the Asian flavors, how we can incorporate this. I worked in the Middle East, you're getting new different inspirations and flavor profile. I think you're open-minded and you don't mind to travel. Besides learning about cooking skills, you're learning also about social skills, about different culture. I think the cultural part, the heritage where you come from, this is a beautiful combination. And this is priceless. You can learn this one, but sometimes, of course, there's a lot of hard work going into it.
即係成功之道咧，要有熱情啦，要有創意啦，要擺內心啦，同埋要擺顧客喺位置上，因為有時自己心情唔靚咧，但係你都要保持笑容嘅。
係啊，因為你唔好影響你嘅顧客嘅心情啊嘛，所以呢個係俾咗好重要嘅 tips 咧，即係想入行嘅朋友，佢話只要見到你眼中有團火咧，就知道你先至有機會成功。因為真係做廚師係好唔容易，你唔好以為淨係喺個廚房度咁簡單。即係學啱啱話齋，就係好多時人哋放假你都仲要翻工，你自己心情好，你都要表現得你心情好好。所以最緊要咧都係嗰個 passion 啊嚇。咁啊，其實真係回歸社會嘅方法有好多啦。咁好似阿 chef 咧就係將一啲嘅德國美食咧就係帶嚟香港啦，然後又好肯同大家去 share， 同我哋 local people 去到去交流啦等等。咁啊，以下落嚟嘅呢一位我哋嘅嘉賓咧就出晒名係人美心善㗎啦。咁佢除咗咧之前同我哋分享咗好多佢事業上面嘅追求啊，一啲個人興趣上面，包括係揸直升機啊一啲嘅嗜好之外咧，其實佢都做好多嘅慈善工作，自己咧仲係設立咗一個嘅慈善基金㗎。聽佢講講啊！繼續請嚟我哋 Icon of the Year 張玉珊小姐 Shirley，
你好
，Hello。
哇 ，Shirley 咧係好慷慨咁樣分享咗好多，無論佢係扮靚啦，佢嘅職業上面啦，跟住佢嘅嗜好啊，揸直升機啊嗰啲，都講咗好多值得我哋學習啊、參考嘅地方啦。嚟到呢一個咧，大家都要學習㗎啦，就係做慈善點樣去幫到人、幫到呢個社會。咁我知道你哋都有個慈善基金會啦，可唔可以都分享下你哋主要做啲咩工作㗎？
其實我一直有一個慈善基金會，其實主要係幫長者啦，即係做長者嘅一啲服務咯。咁其實我哋每個月都會有唔同嘅活動，咁就去了解長者有咩特別嘅需要啊，同埋安慰啦，好重要。因為其實長者係唔等得嘅一個，即佢唔係可以有好多時間喺度等你去幫佢。其實佢需要嗰陣時，你真係要幫到佢。如果唔係，佢變得會好無助，同埋佢自己唔知道點樣去解決佢有時一啲特殊性嘅困難咯。咁所以我自己會有個慈善基金去幫佢哋去即係突發，佢哋當然有一啲合作嘅團體，佢哋有好多嘅義工，隨時知道佢哋有咩特別嘅需要，我哋就會去幫佢。咁平時亦其實每一個月我哋都會除咗每個月我哋有定期派飯啦，咁亦都會有唔同嘅活動，可能係同佢哋去下旅行啦，同佢哋出去飲下茶啊，過時過節。因為其實我都會做得比較多，可能獨居長者或者可能係冇兒冇女嘅長者嘅一啲活動，咁會帶下佢去飲下茶啊，同佢去下睇戲啊，咁過時過節嗰時可能做啲活動同佢哋玩啦，咁亦都會即係做好多可能係冬天可能你又會去派下棉被啊，派下湯圓啊，派下月餅啊，咁夏天又會派下風扇啊，或者去了解可能颱風過後突然間佢哋呢度屋企啲嘢爛咗，嗰度啲嘢爛咗，咁你又要去即係睇下有咩可以幫到佢，甚至乎可能有時就算係一對 couple 嘅老人家，可能突然間有一個病，或者有一啲另外一個有啲困難，咁佢哋點樣去即係自己點樣去適應同埋去面對，同埋有乜嘢實質嘅責任，我哋可以幫到佢咯。
係啊，因為呢排聽好多咧，其實有好似你話齋呢啲 couple 咧，如果有一個病咗啊，嗰個壓力喺另外照顧佢嗰個咧係好大㗎。
係啊，其實好多時係㗎。通常我又成日撞到好多咧健康嗰個反而突然有病，咁變咗咧病嗰個就更無助，健康嗰個更驚，因為佢覺得佢係照顧者咯。係。咁所以呢啲其實都係需要好，因為呢啲唔係話即係老人家唔係話你即刻你就要可以啊，我哋慢慢等下嗰個福利，等下呢個福利。咁我哋就真係要即刻需要去幫佢支援咯。
想問你起初點解會揀去幫長者咧？因為其實回饋社會有好多種，有啲人會揀小朋友啊，或者啲 患病嘅人士啊？點解會揀長者呢個 category 咯？
我細個我嘅公公婆婆好錫我㗎，咁所以我其實好中意老人家嘅，同埋我細個咧，我已經我諗我自己未10幾歲嗰時咧，我已經喺街度見到啲老人家需要幫，我就會幫。細個仲要唔識啊，真係會跟佢哋翻屋企，即係送佢哋老人家，即係拎到好多嘢好重，你幫佢攞翻屋企。你屋企好亂啊，我幫你執屋啊。我曾經試過好得意，我真係跟過一個老人家，佢原來佢有真係無親無戚嘅。咁佢仲有一個大過佢嘅親戚，即係仲有一個大過佢嘅老人家嘅。佢話：你可唔可以幫我啊？佢而家病啊，你可唔可以去幫我探佢啊？take care 佢，咁我就去醫院就照顧嗰個老人家。咁我記得我照顧咗佢都一段時間，照顧到咧嘅所有醫院啲人都以為我係嗰個老人家嘅孫女啊。咁啊，我就記得我自己一次拍廣告拍咗幾日，即係拍完幾日廣告翻去，咁啊跟住個老人家我俾啲醫生鬧喎，哇！你俾個唔知婆婆定嫲嫲喺個醫院門口等咗你好多日啊，你唔翻嚟。咁我都幾有，即係我都曾經照顧過老人家。最後我好記得就係嗰老人家其實我照顧到佢，即係 take care 住佢去醫院，去到佢入療養院。咁我好記得即係對我嚟講幾難忘，就係曾經佢去到療養院。咁唔知點解當時其實我已經入即係好幾年㗎啦。咁我已經入咗行。咁我記得我一日做完嘢我就去探佢。咁我望到佢好瘦喺張床，好似即係我覺得。哎呀唔得，你太瘦啦咁啊！我唔知點解心有靈犀，我突然間就抱起咗佢，即係攞咗張輪椅，我抱起咗佢，就擁咗佢出去曬太陽。咁啊，擁咗佢出去曬太陽之後咧，咁啊就同佢曬一曬，即係曬一段太陽傾下偈咁啊。跟住第二日佢走咗。咁所以我覺得即係我覺得即係對我嚟講係。即係好深刻同埋好即係感動，我自己都覺得，我真係最後即係抱咗佢出去曬一曬太陽，傾咗一個好溫馨嘅偈之後，咁佢走咗。咁所以對我嚟講，我又第一個想做義工嗰時，我就會想去做老人家嘅即係活動咯。
係真係好好啊！有嗰個最後嘅時光
係
有大家都眼濕濕添，真係果然係真係心善就係人美啊！咁嚟緊啊，有冇啲乜嘢特別都想做啊？關於慈善工作方面啊，計劃？
我而家其實除咗老人家之外，我其實做緊即係開始學習緊做青少年啦。咁我好想學習呢樣嘢，因為除咗即係老人家，我做咗一段時間。咁青少年我又好想了解多啲，因為其實我最近開始呢1-2年開始了解嗰陣時，發覺好多時其實佢哋係可能係因為自己嘅眼界未到，所以變咗喺佢一開始年輕嗰時，佢自己未知道自己個世界係點，個世界嘅層次有幾多，而佢可能會識咗啲壞嘅朋友，去即係變咗可能佢多咗時間去識咗啲壞朋友，帶咗去另外一條路。如果我哋可以早啲俾佢喺個眼界或興趣上學到多啲嘢嘅話，可能佢選擇嘅路未必係單方向咯，變咗佢可能會喺另一條路度啟發到自己去學習多啲嘢啦。咁第二嘅就係其實而家自己之前會落手落腳做，即係跟咗好多嘅義工，自己亦都會青少年度都會再跟多啲。另外其實我自己做咗咁多年管理，咁我覺得其實香港係一個好特別嘅地方嚟嘅。其實我哋嘅慈善咧好近我哋世界嘅，即係好多其他嘅國家個慈善冇我哋咁近，你唔發覺我哋身邊冇實際好多唔同嘅自己朋友都參加一啲慈善團體，或者做緊一啲慈善團體。好多嘅慈善團體可能係幫緊人，或者你參與過，或者你即係同佢哋有緊密嘅接觸。所以香港其實係好多人都有身兼幾職嘅慈善團體嘅工作。咁大家都係好近咁去幫人。咁但係喺我哋咁多年去即係幫助人嘅時間裏邊，其實你幫人嗰時，咁你覺得你幫咗佢啫，咁得到嗰人其實覺得開唔開心咧？佢覺得即係當個比喻，我去派飯咁，我派個飯俾你食，你覺得你已經派咗個飯俾佢食咯喎，你應該好感恩喎。其實唔係噶嘛，我食嗰個，你有冇諗過我中唔中意㗎？你個個月都俾呢啲嘢我食，得唔得㗎？即係其實我想喺唔同方面去諗呢件事會唔會個 management 上高可以幫助即係善用大家嘅資源去有進步咧？即係我想去諗下會唔會喺慈善嘅管理上自己可以 點樣去令呢件事有進步咯，同埋有得着咯。
係喎，呢個真係一個新嘅角度喎，即係做慈善工作都有個管理嘅思維喺度，但係當然啦，都係非常之需要啦，同埋多謝係香港好多人都好有心，好積極去投入嗰個慈善工作，但係好需要咧，我哋好似 Shelley 咁樣呢個 Icon of the Year 嘅帶領啦，去動員啦咁樣。
大家互相學習，希望大家都即係我覺得其實聽完之後，我都希望大家可以喺即係幫人之餘，又可以諗下，咦，我喺除咗我喺慈善嘅參與之外，咦，慈善管理可唔可以有啲咩？俾一啲想法，大家去進步。
新鮮感咁樣。
好啊，我哋多謝晒
Shelley，Thank you。